Hey there folks, welcome back to yet another installment of our series on rolling back up. And if you've been following along so far, then you're pretty familiar with the process. Today we're going to look at licks that work for the chord D. Just like the other installments in this series, we're going to look at the licks, how to practice them, and then how to use them. So here are some licks that work on the chord D in 4/4. By the way, I should let you know that if you want the tablature for everything in this lesson and all of my lessons, then you can go to patreon.com/EliGilbertBanjo. That's also where you can get things like bonus practice tips, more backup examples, all kinds of bonus stuff that you can't find here on YouTube. Also, if you don't mind, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. That's a huge thing that you can do to help me make more of these videos. So if you do that, I really appreciate it. Now, there is one more thing that we should probably talk about that's going to help you understand these licks. The licks that we looked at so far for the chord D have been pretty easy to play because we're really just putting one finger on the second fret of the third string. That's a pretty simple chord shape. And for the most part, that's going to be fine. You can just use this shape to play D, and I often do. But there is this bigger 4-note chord shape that looks like this, that bluegrass banjo players use all the time. One way to think about it is it's actually the same shape as our normal C chord shape, just moved up 2 frets. And it's not impossible to play, obviously, it's just a little bit more difficult to play than, say, open G, or C, or E minor, or some of the other chords that we play. So get used to this shape, and these licks are going to be a lot easier to play. To practice these licks, we can do the same thing that we've done for the other licks, which is to put them all in a row and play them in order. The more combinations and variations that you put these licks through, the more comfortable you're going to be with them, which is going to make them easier to use. And by the way, let's talk about how to use these licks. We actually want to use them in songs. That's the whole point, right? So let's do that. Here's a basic 1-4-5 progression, like something you'd see in Blue Ridge Cabin Home. And we're going to use the licks that we learned in the previous lessons for G and C, but we're also going to use the licks from this lesson for D. And of course, I'll say it again, you don't necessarily have to put them in this order. You can put them in whatever order you'd like, and you're going to find that some are easier and some are more difficult, so you'll know where to spend your time in terms of practicing. And let's not forget, we also have to do the same thing for 3/4. So here are some 3/4 licks that work on the chord D. And yet again, we're going to practice them by putting them all in a row. And you guessed it, yes, we're going to put them in a song. So here's that 1-4-5-1 progression, this time in 3/4, using licks that we've learned for G and C, but also the new licks for D. So at this point, we're kind of speeding through these lessons. The formula is pretty simple. We just learn new material, learn when to use it, and then we practice using it. But that said, this lesson is kind of a milestone because by now we've looked at essential backup licks for G, C, and D, 1-4-5 in the key of G. And we play a lot in G position. I spend most of my time playing in G position, and that's just pretty common with bluegrass. Of course, depending on your vocal range or the vocal range of the people that you play with, you might play more in keys like C or D, which means playing in C and D positions. Don't worry, we're going to look at more licks for those keys as well. But a lot of people spend most of their time playing in G position. So you have a lot of the material that you need to play a lot of the stuff that most professional banjo players play most of the time. I challenge you to go watch some videos of players like Earl Scruggs and J.D. Crowe, or more modern players like Kristen Scott Benson or Ron Stewart. A lot of these players use a lot of these licks a lot of the time. There are other variations to these licks. There's other licks that you can play. It's a really deep language, but you're going to hear these licks all the time. And I only say that to mean that you really don't have any excuses anymore. You actually have all the knowledge that you need to play most of the things that most people play. And I don't want to say that you have to play these licks. You can find any other lick that you like and play it, and that'll be great. But if you're looking for what the baseline, just most common lick that people play is, it's things like these. So now it's time to take a look at the songs that you know out of a G position and practice the G licks and the C licks and the D licks and put them in order and see if you can play all the way through the song. That might take some work, as we've been talking about, but it will be worth it because you'll play the things that our favorite banjo players play all the time. So that's it for today. In the next lesson, we're going to start looking at some classic licks for other chords like F and A, E minor, A minor, all the other things that you need to know. But take a look at all this material and work on it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.